everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your stack of articles, research, and notes everything you've been reading, and really cut through the noise to get you the essential knowledge fast.
Think of it as a shortcut to being properly well-informed. We cover the stuff that matters to you, whether you're tracking performance tech, planning your next big outdoor adventure, or just, staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And you sent us a great mix this week. We've got updates from Apple, from Garmin, plus a really wide scope of hiking and general outdoor news. It's perfect for someone like you, maybe following sites like the5runner.com.
Right, someone deep into the tech side of running, cycling, swimming, but also really focused on overall wellness, health span, and definitely getting outside safely.
So our mission today: unpack the most important insights, the surprising facts, and the key developments from all this material you sent over. Let's dive right in. Okay, so let's start with Apple. WWDC 2025 just happened, and there's news on watchOS. First thing that jumps out from your notes: the version number. They went from 11 straight to 26.
Yeah, that's a clear move, isn't it? They're just standardizing the naming, bringing watchOS in line with iOS, macOS, all the others, aligning the version number with the calendar year. It simplifies things down the road.
Makes sense. And visually, there's this whole new design language they're calling liquid glass. What's that about?
Well, what's interesting here is the aesthetic they're going for. It's described as transparent, kind of layered, definitely pulling inspiration from Vision OS.
Oh, okay.
The idea is to make UI elements, widgets, notifications, control center, even the numbers on the photo's watch face seem like they're sort of floating above the background.
Sounds visually, well, striking. But I did notice in the notes a potential concern about readability. If everything's transparent, does that make it harder to see the text clearly, especially over busy backgrounds?
That does raise a really important point, doesn't it? It's that classic tension in UI design. Looks versus function. It might look beautiful, sure, but practicality on a little tiny screen on your wrist is, well, it's everything. We'll have to see how that actually works in the real world.
They've also added new interactions, like this wrist flick gesture.
Yes. And this one's hardware dependent. So if you've got a Series 9 or newer or an Ultra 2, you can do this quick flick of your wrist to, say, dismiss notifications, silence calls or alarms, or just jump back to your watch face.
Okay.
It uses the newer motion sensors in just those models.
Got it. Plus, there's some smaller handy things like automatic volume adjustment based on ambient noise and Apple Music suggesting playlists for your workout type. Those seem like nice little touches.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting, especially for the fitness and wellness crowd, and for someone like you who tracks workouts so closely. The Workout Buddy. This is an AI-powered thing using Apple Intelligence.
An AI workout buddy? What kind of buddy are we talking about here? Is it just going to bark commands at me?
Not quite commands. It's more like insights and, well, pep talks. It's designed to be personalized, using your workout data to give you advice, maybe remind you of past achievements or goals, celebrate milestones during the workout.
Mid-workout pep talks. Okay.
And then give you a recap, pointing out personal records and things like that.
Right. Your source notes mentioned some pretty mixed reactions, though, calling it uncanny AI voice junk or underwhelming. Is there a risk this just becomes, annoying noise when you're really pushing hard?
That is the key question, isn't it? Apple's positioning it as this. It's becoming more proactive, using better prediction based on your routine and location. So it might offer these timely hints, like suggesting a Pilates workout when you arrive at the studio, maybe. Or, and this feels genuinely useful for safety, suggesting backtrack if you're out in a remote area with no signal.
Oh, that backtrack hint is actually quite clever. And finally, something long requested. The Notes app is coming to watchOS.
Yep. You'll be able to view, pin, create notes using Siri, dictation, or that little keyboard, and even tick off checklists right from your wrist. That was noted as a really positive addition pretty much across the board. And other Apple Intelligence features, things like live translation and messages, and those call features like hold assist and call screening. They're coming to compatible watches and iPhones, too. Described as clever, almost sci-fi stuff from your wrist.
Okay, so just to recap, compatibility for watchOS 26 needs a Series 6 or later, SE 2nd Gen, or an Ultra, and paired with an iPhone 11 or later. But those Apple Intelligence features, Workout Buddy included,
right, those need the newer hardware. Series 9 or Ultra 2, and an AI-capable iPhone, like the 15 Pro or Pro Max or the upcoming 16 series.
So it feels like Apple's making these iterative improvements, focusing on the bigger ecosystem, pushing AI everywhere. But the core fitness stuff feels maybe less revolutionary compared to some dedicated platforms.
That's definitely the sense from the notes. The UI changes, the AI call features are slick. But the fitness side, especially that workout buddy, wasn't seen as a total game changer by many. The feeling was the bigger AI impact for Apple this year was maybe more on iPad and Mac.
Interesting.
And the speculation is that Apple's longer-term health focus for the watch might be more in areas like medical-grade sensing blood pressure trends, things like that, rather than going head-to-head feature for feature with platforms built for deep performance data like, 2047 high-res HRV.
Right. Okay, speaking of the Watch Ultra, let's shift to some really intriguing speculation. Your sources picked up on a theory about a potential Apple Watch Ultra 3 with solar charging.
Yeah, this one comes straight from a visual detail. In an Apple video they showed at WWDC, it showed an Apple Watch Ultra 2. But the watch face very clearly displayed the word solar.
Okay, hang on. Was that like a deliberate teaser for a future product or just some random graphic? A gag, maybe?
That's the big debate the notes dug into. Historically, Apple has used these subtle visual hints at WWDC that turn out to be real things later, like the silhouette of the thin MacBook Air or showing iMac colors before launch. A solar watch face feels pretty blunt if it wasn't deliberate.
And technically, is putting solar into an AMOLED smartwatch even, like, feasible right now?
Well, as far as the sources indicate, no, there isn't an AMOLED solar smartwatch actually on the market today. But patents do exist. Garmin, for instance, has a patent for transparent photovoltaic cells that sit under an AMOLED screen.
Oh, interesting.
And there's even research into OLEDs themselves maybe acting as photovoltaic cells. So the underlying tech is definitely being explored.
So what's the likelihood assessment from the notes, then? Is this happening?
Well, without that specific video hint, it would seem pretty doubtful, just given the power demands of the Ultra screen and features and the technical complexity. But the sheer bluntness of that solar text makes it reasonable to at least consider.
Right.
It's tempered, though, by the fact that no competitor has actually managed this yet with an AMOLED display.
And for a Watch Ultra 3 to really make waves, it would need a big hardware update, wouldn't it? Solar could definitely create that buzz. And maybe offer a battery boost, which the source notes point out the Ultra could kind of use. That 12-hour GPS time is called less than average compared to some others.
Exactly. But the opinion offered was that solar, on a device this power-hungry, it might end up being more of a marketing thing than providing truly significant real-world battery gains in typical use. Maybe just keeps it topped up a tiny bit.
Yeah, I can see that. The reader comments you included showed that mix too, right? Some thought gag, others saw the power challenge, some got technical about OLEDs, and questioning how useful it'd really be depending on where you live, how much sun you actually get.
It clearly
Yeah.
sparked a lot of talk. Yeah, all from just one word on a screen.
Okay, let's transition away from Apple's maybe future to some definite updates from Garmin, specifically for their edge cycling computers, the 540, 840, 1040, 1050, and the solar ones.
Yes, Garmin pushed out new firmware recently, versions 27.14 and 12.14. These were mostly bug fix releases, really just cleaning up issues from a previous larger update.
So fixing things like freezes or crashes during navigation and sorting out problems pairing with the InReach Mini 2.
Correct. There were also a few smaller features sprinkled in, like enabling software updates via Bluetooth Low Energy, which is handy, presets for Campagnolo's 13-speed group sets, support for VariaView SD card reformatting. There was also mention of some new animations, but apparently they're quite hard to spot.
One useful addition seems to be the ability to natively save a course in the reverse direction.
Right, you could always ride a course backward before, but now you can easily create and save that reversed version as its own separate course right on the device. But the absolutely critical warning here, and DC Raimaker highlighted this, is you have got to be incredibly careful about one-way roads when you do this. He used the Mount Bunningong example, where reversing the course puts you straight onto a one-way uphill street right into oncoming traffic.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good warning.
Yeah, so always double-check the map. Make sure your map packs are updated before you rely on a reversed route.
I saw a note about a weird detail with spectator messaging. What was that?
Yeah, that was a bit of a rabbit hole. It's part of Garmin's Live Track feature. But the spectator messaging function only works if you send the Live Track link specifically via email.
Only email.
Yeah, if you just copy the link from Garmin Connect or share it on social media, that messaging part isn't enabled. Weird quirk. They also added an 8-second timeout prompt, which is just a small usability tweak.
Gotcha. Other improvements noted were things like better altimeter accuracy, improved pairing for secure BLE sensors, which is important as ANT and ANT Plus fade out.
Right. with maybe hope for secure group set connections down the line using BLE. Also better performance with really large courses, improved handling for gear presets with non-standard counts like the newer 14-speed stuff, and generally better map and elevation handling.
And just a lot of fixed issues, including small annoyances like the stop navigation option vanishing too quickly.
Exactly, polishing things up.
Okay, shifting to maps specifically, there's some pretty big news here that apparently arrived very quietly.
That's right. The sources found that Garmin cycling maps, as a standalone product, are being discontinued, effective May 7th, 2025.
Discontinue? Wait, what does that mean for users? Do you lose maps? Have to buy something new?
Okay, so the good news is the actual map content isn't disappearing. It's being merged into their topo active maps. The key question for you and other users is about future updates.
Right.
The notes mention the content can be purchased or downloaded, but there's hope that existing owners will just continue to get free updates via download through Garmin Express like they do now. Topo Active version 25.10 is already out and includes this cycling data. And a practical tip mentioned again. Always use a USB cable for these huge map updates. Wi-Fi can be super slow or unreliable.
Okay, good tip. And what kind of improvements are in these merged maps?
Well, fixes for routing errors, especially noted in Europe. Improved road colors and contrast, making it easier to distinguish different road classes, and even identifying sealed versus unsealed roads at certain zoom levels. City labels are bigger. And there's an interesting detail about how parks visually drop off at higher zooms, but their boundary lines remain visible. Plus, updated popularity data, those heat maps showing where people actually ride or hike.
I saw that point about popularity maps sometimes simplifying the screen, like drawing other map details to focus just on the suggested route overlay.
Yeah, it seems designed to sort of prioritize that heat map data when you're actively using it for route planning or following. An interesting choice.
And the most celebrated undocumented update from this release.
Huh. Yes, a larger turtle icon on the navigation screen. Or, a triangle, depending on your perspective.
A bigger turtle, really.
It sounds totally trivial.
You're right.
But apparently, on the Garmin user forums, it was a small but widely praised change. Just making that little navigation arrow slightly bigger and easier to glance at. A genuine quality of life win they didn't even list in the notes.
Sometimes it's the little things. There were also some tech tips mentioned, that USB over Wi-Fi thing, a potential fix for Garmin Express issues on Apple Silicon Macs found in a forum thread, and the switch to MTP protocol for file access on these newer Edge units instead of mass storage.
Right, which means Mac users might need a tool like Android File Transfer if they want direct file access, which they used to get easily. Just useful troubleshooting info.
Okay, now looking ahead, your sources are hinting at a potentially significant new Garmin feature coming soon. Timing gates.
Yeah, the concept itself isn't totally new for Garmin. They have an auto lap by timing gates on the Forerunner 970 already, mainly for aligning race laps accurately with physical markers. But this naming suggests something broader, and it looks like enhanced timing gates functionality is expected maybe June or July 2025.
Possibly launching on new Edge models, maybe the rumored 550 or 850 around the time of Eurobike, perhaps?
This is the speculation, yeah. The notes detail how the MTD version of this feature works. You can manually create up to 10 of these gates using GPS. You literally stand at the spot, face downhill, press a button. It's a big step up from the old auto lap by position, which only let you set one single spot. This is designed for setting up a single continuous route with multiple marked timing points.
And what's the real benefit for mountain bikers, or maybe others?
The main thing is creating automatic laps or segments as you ride the course. This is huge for, say, timed downhill sections.
Yeah.
Because it totally gets around the danger and the inaccuracy of trying to hit a manual lap button when you're flying downhill at over 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's never ideal. And to improve accuracy at those speeds.
They're adding 5 Hertz downhill recording. So 5 GPS points per second instead of the usual one. Combined with the newer GNSS chipsets, that should give significantly better accuracy, especially when you're moving fast and changing direction quickly.
Makes sense. So where else could this feature apply, beyond MTB?
Well, the notes speculate snow and water sports seem like a perfect fit, right? Setting up gates on a ski slope or a paddle course, although you'd obviously need to reseal the course first, and moving gates on water adds some complexity.
True.
For slower sports like running or just regular road cycling, manual lap tapping might still be good enough, so its usefulness is maybe questioned there. Unless they make it easy to create gates in Garmin Connect beforehand, maybe behind a paywall, potentially.
But here's where it gets really interesting for multi-sport athletes like you and a lot of the folks following the 5runner.com.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. The source is incredibly excited about the potential for triathlon use. The idea is simple, but could be revolutionary. You could use this timing gate feature to manually mark your transitions before the race starts. Swim in, bike out, bike in, run out.
Oh, wow.
Combine that with Garmin's existing auto multisport profile features. And you could potentially create a truly automated race profile that handles all your splits, all your transitions seamlessly. No more hitting the lap button frantically in T1.
So Garmin could be the first to offer genuinely automated multisport tracking.
That's the hope. It just seems like such an obvious, perfect fit for triathlons, although the note also adds a word of caution. A core feature that's useful, solving such a long-standing problem for triathletes. It kind of screams subscription paywall, which would be really frustrating if it's not just included for free on the capable devices.
Yeah, let's hope not. So the takeaway on timing gates.
It shows Garmin is definitely doing market research, innovating for competitive and structured training. Even if there are challenges, like maybe accuracy under heavy tree cover sometimes. But applying this to triathlon really does feel like a no-brainer that they've probably already thought about or are planning.
Yeah.
There was even a comment about someone seeing an event listing for the Chicago Marathon in the Garmin app that mentioned using this feature, which would be huge validation.
Very cool potential there. Okay, let's shift gears completely now to the wide range of hiking and general outdoor news you pulled together from your sources. There is a ton here. Apps, safety, access.
Yeah, it's a really broad sweep of what's happening out there, starting with apps and digital tools. All trails have rebundled their services. Now it's free, plus, and peak tiers.
And that caused some user grumbling, features moving between tiers.
Correct. The peak level price is now pretty comparable to other dedicated mapping apps like OnX or Gaia GPS.
Yeah.
But the plus level, it still offers good value, especially for getting those offline map downloads, which is absolutely critical for safety. Footpath, another routing app, they're testing a direct integration with Garmin InReach, so you can share your live InReach position onto a footpath map, which is a neat cross-platform safety feature.
Goat Maps, that's the new one from Gaia folks. Launched a web version.
Still pretty limited compared to the big players, but they have a web version now. And there was a mention of a cool, free online tool for visualizing your GPX tracks in 3D.
Nice. On satellite communications specifically, Starlink's direct-to-cell service.
Yeah, this is notable. T-Mobile has priced its texting service using this at $10 a month. And apparently it's for anyone, even if you're not a T-Mobile customer. That sets a clear price benchmark for basic satellite texting, which contrasts with Apple's currently free satellite messaging.
And speaking of Apple and satellites, the note spotted a reference to Apple satellite weather in the WWDC code.
Pure speculation at this point, but yeah. Could it be a future feature for newer iPhones?
Yeah.
Maybe hinting at Apple trying to compete more directly with Garmin InReach by offering more satellite services beyond just SOS and basic texts? Who knows?
Interesting. More Garmin InReach news, though, and this was highlighted as a really positive change. They're letting accounts be suspended for up to 12 months free of charge now.
Yes. That's a huge relief for seasonal users, right? People who don't want to pay that monthly fee all year round. Probably came from user feedback. Quick note on their SAR insurance, though, the SAR 100 Plus plans. You can now only buy it if you're in the US or Canada, but it still gives you worldwide coverage if you do buy it there. Overwatch and Rescue was mentioned as an alternative SOS subscription service, too.
Okay. There was also a confusing note about InReach satellite tracking, now giving users the option to use MapShare or LiveTrack, which is the standard Garmin Watch interface.
Right, and what's fascinating, or maybe confusing about that choice is, could it be a hint? Is Garmin developing a future satellite-capable watch? Building InReach tech onto, say, an Enduro 3 base, maybe in a smaller InReach Mini 3 type body, with mapping, nav, maybe even standard and plus options for voice or photo sending. It's pure speculation, but that little UI change sparked it.
Interesting dots to connect. Shifting slightly within Garmin, a leaked video about a sleep-tracking armband.
Yeah, letting users get sleep data without having to wear a watch overnight. And their CEO mentioned tariffs could cost Garmin $100 million, keeping options open on whether those costs get passed on to us, the customers.
Wow.
Just highlights the business side, right? Global supply chains, trade policies, R&D into new gadgets. It all affects the gear we use. Keen Footwear was noted as saying they won't pass on tariffs in 2025, so that's a comparison point.
And a bit of controversy brewing. Garmin Trails, a new paywalled service.
Yeah, the source called this a ballsy move. Essentially, it packages up and resells user data, people's recorded hikes, activities into a commercial product.
Yeah.
And Garmin is actively prompting users to contribute all this data for free. which it then turns around and monetizes.
That definitely raises some questions about data ownership and privacy on these platforms.
It really does. Also in this section, software was spotted suggesting a Google Maps integration with Garmin might be coming, which feels like it should be simple when paired with the phone, but the specific software hinted at maybe a deeper integration plan.
Okay. Other small but interesting Garmin Watch features mentioned, adding pack weight to training effect. So logging you're carrying 60 pounds actually changes how the watch sees your effort.
Yeah, and features like rocking. And there was that great anecdote about a Garmin watch surviving a super long journey lost in the Irish Sea. Proof of ruggedness, I guess. Coros, another watchmaker, they've started a repair program, which is a good step for sustainability.
Definitely. Okay, let's transition now from tech and business to some really critical safety information and, sadly, some recent tragic events highlighted in your sources.
Yeah, this is important stuff.
The Grand Canyon heat-related deaths, and that report of 13 helicopter rescues in just one week. It's just an incredible stark reminder of how dangerous that heat can be. And the Park Service warnings about delayed help because staff are stretched thin and rescue volume is so high. That's crucial for people to understand.
Absolutely. And the note suggested that the closure of the river trail might actually be pushing people onto more exposed, waterless rim-to-rim routes, maybe increasing the risk even more. And it's really disheartening to read that report about some visitors being rude about rescue delays. Just highlights the immense strain on those resources.
Yeah. Another heat death reported in Arizona, an influencer apparently, just underscores taking heat seriously. The author even included a personal example of changing plans because of lightning. You have to adapt.
And then the tragic exposure deaths of a father and daughter hiking Mount Katahdin in Maine in June. That's such a powerful reminder that even in summer, high mountains can still be deadly.
Yeah.
Cold, wet, windy conditions combined. Preparedness, understanding weather, having the right gear, it's just non-negotiable up there.
Absolutely sobering. Other safety notes. A PCT closure in California during a search for a murder suspect. 2 people gored by bison in Yellowstone for getting too close. Multiple waterfall deaths, East Coast and Olympic NP from slipping near the edge.
Yeah, just tragic reminders. And an unusual story from Spain mentioned a huge fine, over $200,000, for someone throwing a rock down a gorge where hikers were below. Real consequences for reckless behavior. And a report of a grizzly following a hiker in Banff, though it sounded like the bear was just using the trail. Still unnerving.
For sure. Okay, moving to park and trail access management issues. Glacier NP started a hiker shuttle to deal with construction, seen as a good idea.
Yeah, potentially useful in other busy parks too. Also, those more perfect union billboards popping up, highlighting potential negative impacts of budget cuts on park resources. And the author noted seeing fewer visitors, especially overseas tourists, at Bryce NP, maybe broader travel shifts happening. The Interior Department is also floating the idea of charging non-Americans more for park entry.
And a definite warning note. A guide company, Western Sierra Adventures, listed on Yosemite's official approved page, reportedly took payment but never actually provided a tour.
Oof. Yeah, definitely buyer beware. Do your research, even if a company's officially listed somewhere.
Good advice. On a more positive note.
Shenandoah National Park is growing by 50 acres, and a new tribal national park opened in North Dakota, which was highlighted as really awesome, a great step for indigenous management of public lands.
That is good news. There's also a lawsuit in California challenging junk fees on a recreation booking site, with maybe hopes this could lead to challenging the federalrecreation.gov site's permit application fees, like that $6 fee just to apply, even if you don't get the permit.
Yeah, access continues to be complicated. The Chilkoot Trail, Alaska to Canada, reopened, but unfortunately you still can't hike all the way across the border. Ongoing issues since 2022 affecting that, and also the northern end of the PCT.
Huh. Okay, some other interesting outdoor bits. USA Today listed its 10 best trails. Section Hiker has a new book, Hiking Over 60, Tips for Olding Hikers. A company called Summit Something selling Leave No Trace friendly summit flags.
Yep, and a story about John McShane and his cool trash picker invention, but highlighting how tariffs messed up his manufacturing plans. Updates on Southern California fire closures and openings. An arrest made about that guy harassing hikers at the Mount Baldy trailhead. And the Heroes Project opening a gear shop cafe guide service at Icehouse Canyon Trailhead supporting veterans.
Good stuff there. Mountain High Resort offering chairlift service for mountain biking in Angeles NF now. And a controversial BLM proposal for mining at Conglomerate Mesa, visible from Mount Whitney.
Yeah, facing opposition. A documentary was recommended explaining why it's seen as a bad idea.
Okay. And finally, the notes introduce the International Association of Search and Rescue Coordinators, ISARC.
Right. Founded by a retired U.S. Coast Guard SAR veteran. Its mission is basically to standardize search and rescue coordination globally.
And their core message:
that lives are saved by a system. It's not just the heroic folks rappelling from helicopters, but the whole complex system. Talented people doing various jobs, pilots, medics, comm specialists, and crucially, the coordinators managing the whole operation from behind the scenes. They advocate for those coordinators, aiming to improve competency and the whole science of SAR worldwide.
wow. Okay. We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from, cutting-edge tech speculation like Apple's maybe Solar Watch and the nuances of their AI workout buddy, to Gurman's very practical edge updates and that really exciting potential of timing gates for athletes like you. And then that critical shift to essential safety reminders from recent tragedies, changes in how we access and manage our outdoor spaces, and even the quiet controversies happening in outdoor tech and business.
Yeah, the pace of tech change in fitness and the outdoors is just so rapid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Offering new tools, new data. But as we saw clearly with all that safety news, the fundamental stuff, preparedness, environmental awareness, respecting conditions, that remains absolutely paramount. It's always a balance.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to consider as you process all this. With technology offering us increasingly sophisticated tools, AI companions, satellite links, automated tracking, how do we navigate that balance between leveraging these cool advancements for performance and safety and maintaining those fundamental, often low-tech skills, that awareness, that self-sufficiency that's just essential when you're really out there?
Yeah.
And alongside that, how do we weigh the increasing commercialization, paywalls, data monetization, changing access against those core values of community, shared stewardship, open access that have kind of historically defined the outdoor world?
Definitely something to mull over as you plan your next adventure or workout.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.